We got dual hydros on the front wheel now. That's sick. It looks sweet. Look at that thing. We're also gonna try to pick it up, see how heavy it is. Oh, it's off the ground. Welcome back to another episode of Minute Metal Fab, everyone. Today, we are working on part 5 of the Kraken build, the 500cc mini bike.
We have the exhaust system in and pretty much wrapped up. Carbs getting there, we're dialing that in. But
Yep.
right now, what we're working on is
Our front brakes.
Dual hydraulic brakes on the front.
Yeah.
So our linkage is all there. Now I just need to make tabs to connect or mount our calipers on to our shocks.
Yep.
And then it'll be done. It'll be ready.
Yeah. So we gotta make something that's gonna go from these two bolt holes right here. It's gonna come up and weld to these brackets here, one for each side. And then we'll have front brakes. It'll be sick. Front brakes on both sides too.
This is what we're starting with. This will mount up at the top of our bracket over there, and then come down here. We're gonna drill our holes first. Cut out this little circle here so the caliper piston will fit, and then we'll cut out our shape, see if that works. And if it does, we'll just copy it and make another one for the other side.
So I made the brake bracket here. This is one side. We're gonna make a copy for the other side then. I'm gonna bolt this up and I'll be able to tack it in place. We got them both on, but they're still a little weak, so we're gonna make a bracket that's gonna go from here to the axle nut here on both sides, and we're gonna weld that on as well. And that's really strengthening it up good. So we're gonna take the axle off so we can do that. Here's this one on, looking good. That's fire. We got dual hydros on the front wheel now. That's sick. We made our extra little braces for down at the bottom for our brakes, just to make sure that nothing will allow it to twist or get tweaked or anything like that. So those are on, so I'm gonna weld them in place now, and then they'll be perfect. The front brakes will be complete. There's two. That is awesome. Look at that.
Supports in, looking nice.
Yeah. Bolt in, bolt off. They're not permanent to these forks. So when we take these off for the upgraded brakes, we can just unbolt them, and then we have these forks for another build that don't necessarily have to have front brakes if they don't want it.
But it'll have dual.
Yup. It has dual currently, which is awesome. This is probably a world's first for a mini bike. Let us know in the comments if you've ever seen anyone else on a mini bike have dual front brakes like that.
And hydraulic.
Yeah, and hydraulic, going to one lever on the handlebars like this. That's pretty awesome. It's some serious stopping power. We are going to pull the spark plugs out. One, to check them to see what they look like for carb tuning purposes. And then two, I want to crank this thing over while we have the oil pan underneath the oil filter. I want to crack the oil filter loose and see if it's building oil pressure. Because our oil pressure gauge is on. The light never turns off. I don't know if it's not building pressure or if the light or the wiring, something was wrong with it from when I transferred it over. Could have messed up the wiring with that light somehow. So I'm going to try and see if it's building pressure. Because if it's building pressure, when you crack that loose, it should shoot out. If it's not building pressure, it won't shoot out. So we're going to see what it does. And hopefully we see it shoot out. Because it doesn't sound bad. Like, I don't hear any valve ticks or any knocking or anything like that. Like it sounds like everything's getting lubricated. But the light's on. I put a new oil pressure sensor in it. I checked over all the wiring. It all seemed to be good. So I'm not sure why it's still on. So we're gonna try and figure this out real quick. And if not, it is what it is. The light will just be on. Because it's weird. When you go into gear, it turns off. But when you're in neutral, it's on. But when it was on the actual street bike frame, it turned off and stayed off. So I don't know what's going on with it. But let's see if we can figure out if we got pressure. Well, we checked it, and it has oil pressure. It came pouring right out. So that's good. So it's just the wiring or the sensor, or I don't know, the light bulb maybe. Something's messed up with it. So it is what it is. When you're in gear riding, you won't see it. So
The right cylinder, that spark plug was loose. That may or may not have been
affecting our running issues. Yeah, I forgot to tighten it down. So we'll fire it up real quick and see how it sounds now that we tighten it down.
Yeah. Fuel is on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did a quick diagnosis and
Figure out
We're
why
out
it
of
won't
gas.
start.
ain't got no gas
fluid
in
to
it.
make it start.
Mm-mm.
We need to get more gas. Oh.
Come on.
Okay, 1, 2. I think I cleaned it out too much.
I think so.
Let's try putting the air fuel back to where it was.
Close.
I don't know what's wrong with it. I have this stainless steel solid round stock here, and I want to build a guard for our radiators here because they're kind of out in the open, and when we're out doing trails or down in the dunes, you know, there's going to be sand and dirt and rocks and sticks flying up and things, branches from the trees. I don't want something taking out a radiator and leaving us stranded. So I'm going to get this, and I'm going to build a frame that's going to go around here in a box, and then we'll fill the whole center in with some expanded sheet metal, and that should protect it. And then we'll make 2 bolt holes. I'll bolt it here. We're also going to add 1 more mounting tab for the radiator itself. It's got a little bit of play here, just to eliminate the outer play here. We're going to put 1 on the top here, going to our frame back here. So we'll do something with that. Not with this. It's going to be sheet metal or something, but
That one.
yeah, from the top here, going up over here somewhere to the frame on 1 on each side, and then that'll secure it really good. So I marked out where we gotta make our first bend to be able to get it to go 90, to go up and then across, and then we'll have to bend it back down, and then back across, and we'll have to cut it and weld it there. That's the plan at least. We might not be able to get the 90s the way we want. They're kind of tight, so we might end up just cutting and welding all of it. We'll see. Pull it
A little bit. Yep. A little more.
something like that maybe. Not sure if our bend's quite where we want it.
Just hold it along the backside, yeah. Is that too much?
I mean, we can trim the excess off the bottom. We gotta bend it a little bit more though. I think we'll probably end up just doing 2 90s. It'll be a lot easier. this is our guard right here. We just doubled up our expanded sheets. That way it's less holy and stronger. And it'll stop tons of stuff. Any rocks or sticks or branches, whatever. Keep it...
But it's still breathable.
Yeah, it's still gonna flow some air through it. Looks good. So now we can bolt it on. You got 10 mil that goes to here, or 8 mil that goes to here, I mean.
Bolting it in now, but this is our radiator guard.
Yep, looks good.
Yeah.
And then we have a bracket that's gonna bolt on the outside here that we're gonna weld to our gas tank mounting tab up there. And now it'll reinforce the outside so it can't do that anymore.
Just that little bit of round rod and doubled up the sheet metal, or expanded metal, and here we go. Gonna give it a whirl.
We got the guard on and our reinforcement bracket going up and welded in place as well. So now this thing is solid. It can't go anywhere. So I accidentally put a freaking little pinhole in our brand new radiator trying to tack this stuff together because I missed the steel and the gun touched the radiator and arced. But obviously, you know, steel wire can't weld to aluminum. So all it did was just like stick a little bit. So when I went to pull the wire off, it just pulled the aluminum out and just put a pinhole in it, and all our coolant just started pouring everywhere. So I currently JB welded that, and we're letting that dry now. So hopefully that will fix our issue. Because I really don't want to buy another freaking radiator for this thing. I'm going to be pissed. Because these are not cheap radiators. But it is what it is. Mistakes are made and lessons were learned. So I pulled the guard off, and the hole is still there. As you can see, right there, that tiny little pinhole right there. That's the hole. That's making it leak. Freaking ridiculous. But we started making the guard for the other side, so Russell's gonna weld the screen in that. He's mocking everything up, and he's gonna tack it in place and get it done. Well, I'm gonna remove this radiator now, so that way I can scrape the JB roll off, because I'm gonna try to braze it. I guess. I'm gonna see if we have any brazing rods or aluminum TIG wire at my shop and see if I can melt that into the hole and seal it. We just got our other guard on, looking perfect. And this one, we did not bust the radiator on. And as you can see, there's spacing behind for all the airflow and everything. Any dust and dirt to fall out. Yes, and then we got this one off to get repaired tomorrow. And then hopefully it'll be a minute we can fire this thing up and see how it sounds with the new carb tune we did, because we put new jets in it. We can't exactly run it when it spews coolant. Well, so I tried to fix it and failed epically. It's a lot harder than it looks. It's really thin and easy to burn through it. And yeah, so this is
Done for.
garbage. I went out and bought 2 new ones. Brand new, in box. So we're gonna put this bad boy on instead. Hopefully it bolts right on, because they're not exactly the same, but they're very, very close. It fits, it bolted right on. Guard bolted on, hoses went on. Beautiful. So now I can fill it up with coolant and fire it up, bleed the system, you know, all that fun stuff, get all the air out, fill it up some more, and blah, 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 till it's full. So I'm gonna start doing that, and then, yeah, it'll be ready to tune the carb some more, and then wait for our parts for the rear end to come. We're waiting for the live axle to come. We got a 1-inch solid rear axle on the way, and there are chains and 2 sprockets. And other than that, once those show up, we'll have everything we need to finish this build. We got all the parts in except for the chain. So everything we need here is here to make this thing a ripper, except for the chains. So I have to order the chains and wait for them to come. But we'll be able to get started on the rear end with the full suspension and our Jagshaft and our swing arm and the rear 1-inch live axle, getting the rear wheel on, the brakes hooked up. So there's a lot we can do. We have all the bearings. We got nice rear brakes right here. We're gonna be running for a foot brake. We got our hubs here for mounting to the sprockets. Our 1-inch axle. We got all our bearings and the hangers, and all the locking collars, our rear shock here we're gonna use, and then our 2 sprockets for the Jagshaft. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start tearing apart this rear. I'm gonna pull the axle out with the wheel, and I'm gonna cut these zip ties so I can move the wiring out of our way, and we're gonna cut this with a Sawzall straight through here, here, and right through here, and delete the whole rear end on both sides. There's officially no more rear end to our mini bike anymore. It has been completely cut off and cleaned up. Here it is. And this is our bearings. And we are going to be welding these on, sitting right in here like this. One on each side for our Jagshaft slash swing arm mount. So I have the axle outside. I'm gonna cut our axle down to size. It has to be 12.5 inches wide to span the width of the back of the frame there. So I'm gonna cut it to that, and then we will be able to start mocking this up.
Then we have the Jackshaft welded in, well, tacked in, and test fitted our sprocket from engine to here, and so far everything lines up nicely. Now we're assembling the other bearings, and we're gonna start mocking up our rear end.
We got all the rest of the bearings all mocked up. We're gonna install them on our Jagshaft. So I gotta slide it back out, slide this sprocket right here off, slide 2 bearings into the center there, flip that sprocket as well, and then slide it all back together. So I got our first bends in our swing arm pipe here. And we got our Jagshaft fully mounted, tacked in. Sprockets are where they're gonna be. And these are gonna be our swing arm bearings right here. So I'm gonna trim these pipes right here at the 3-inch mark here, both sides. And then we're gonna measure, see how long we need it to go before we add our second bends in it to bring it back to straight. So we got our tubing bender here, our pipes up in it. I got 1 inch marked out, so I'm bouncing around, going 10 pumps on each one until I get the desired bend. So you just take it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just like that, and then you loosen it up, let it out, and move to the next dash. We are tacking in our lower swing arm bars here. We're stretching this thing over 5 feet long. The wheel's gonna be all the way back here. No, I'm playing. The wheel's gonna sit right in here. We got them cut to length, tacked in, rear axles tacked in, everything squared up perfectly. Looking good. So I'm gonna tack the rear axle bearings in and a few more spots on the back. And then I'm gonna put the rear tire on so I can figure out where a shock mount's gonna go. I just welded in a cross member for a shock bolt 2. And we're gonna make 4 tabs, 2 for the bottom and 2 that are gonna come up off the top right here. Look at how good the freaking rear tire looks on this thing. It looks so mean. It's just so fat. And we got the brake rotor system done too. So our brakes gonna be on this side and our sprocket is gonna be on this side. Russell's drilling out the bolt holes for our shock tabs. And I am putting the rear axle together. The rear end is together and it is sitting under its own weight. We got the shock in. It's a bit soft. I need to stiffen it. It's a bit easy to push down. So I'm gonna stiffen the shock and we might have to change the angle a little bit to dial it into the right stiffness, but it is under its own weight and this thing looks insane on the rear end now. The swing arm's not done yet either. I gotta finish the top half of the swing arm because only the bottom part is done. So I gotta do that and then we can start working on the brakes in the back. Look at this thing, the tire, stretched. Looks insane. This thing's gonna be such a monster. I'm so excited for the first test ride. I got the rear of the swing arm tacked in on the top there on both sides. It looks sweet. Look at that thing. Freaking beefy. So now I have to figure out how I'm gonna reinforce this thing. I got the swing arm reinforcements in. All tacked in. Everything's looking really good. This is one beefy, sweet looking swing arm here. It is awesome. So right now I loosened our shock because we have more threads, we can tighten it down to add more stiffness. So I'm gonna continue, hit it down with the punch, and we'll relock it in place, and then we'll be able to check the stiffness after that. But I also need to pull the axle off and pull the jackshaft off so I can flip the bearings and add locking collars to that. And then we can start the brakes. Swing arm is removed. So now I can weld in our bearings fully to the frame and fully weld the swing arm together. I got everything fully welded to the frame. And Russell is cleaning up the swing arm. We got that fully welded up too. I'm gonna clamp the welds on the frame and then we'll be able to bolt it all back together. The rear end is all back together, fully welded, sanded. It looks incredible. We still gotta stiffen our rear shock a bit. It's still a little soft. So we're gonna cut the top shock tabs off and make longer ones that will stand it up more. So we'll have to do that tomorrow. And then we have to do our rear brakes with a foot pedal. And I have to take the jackshaft back off so I can add a locking collar right here that I forgot to put on. But this thing is coming out sweet. And then we just gotta wait for our chains and sprockets to come. And we can finish this thing and take it for a test ride. Look at how good that looks. It looks incredible. I love how we didn't stretch it too much, but it's enough to where it should be safe and not want to flip constantly. Right, Russell? Because this thing's gonna want to do some wheelies. I cut out our old shock mounts. Now we're making new ones that are gonna mount the shock up at this height instead, because this is much taller, so hopefully it'll be stiff enough for us to where I like it. So these are where I'm cutting out. This, and I'm gonna box it in since it's so tall now, just to make it that much stronger. We're also gonna try to pick it up, see how heavy it is. Oh, it's off the ground.
Easily over 2 now.
Yeah, the swing arm, the front tire and brakes, the fender, it all added some weight.
Really? There's nowhere to
Exhaust.
grab it.
Yeah, there's nowhere to pick it up anymore, so you can't really lift.
It has wheels.
Yeah.
So like moving it just to there was a challenge.
Yeah, it was. But on the bright side, we welded our shock mount in, and it works beautifully. It's like the perfect stiffness now. So we're gonna roll with it. I'm gonna fully weld it in, and we're gonna call it good. I think that should be strong enough. It looks cool, but yeah. So today we are working on the 500 Kraken some more. We did a few things last night. I relocated our shock mount up much higher, and then we did the wheel run plate on the back as well, and we did the kickstand. We lengthened it so that way it stands upright and it's not leaning, nearly falling over like it was. So today I'm going to be installing our rear brake caliper and master cylinder and figuring out a way to try to run linkage. I got the rear caliper mounted up. Look at that. Beautiful tolerances, just barely fits back here with this wheel and rim setup. But it looks good. Now we just gotta get our chain setup done. But we have to figure out where we're gonna put this master cylinder here. And then we also gotta figure out how we're gonna run linkage to make it work. So, yeah, it's gonna be complicated here. to figure out how we're gonna do all this, because we gotta hook it up and we gotta make a foot brake for over here, but we got the exhaust over here too. We'll see. So I figured out where it's going. Run the line around the outside of the swing arm on this side so it can't hit the tire ever. Comes up underneath here. It's gonna get zip tied right over here to this guy right there. So that way it won't hit the shock. And then it runs up over our battery box right here and then bolts right to the side of the battery box right there. That way it can't hit our chains or our sprockets or the Jackshaft, and everything will be perfect. Next up, I have to make a pedal, a foot brake lever for that we can mount down here somewhere. And then I need to make linkage to go from here, because this pushes forward to engage our caliper, and we want the pedal to go down. I have to make them connect and make that movement happen. So I gotta see what I can come up with. I think I'm gonna make the foot brake first and then the linkage. I made a foot pedal here, and then we have this linkage, this hard linkage we're gonna be running. It's gonna go up the side of the engine, and then we're gonna use this one here to connect it to our L bracket we made right here, which this goes on like this, and then it's gonna go right to this hole here, and then this hole is gonna go to that hole there. So then when you push down on the pedal, it'll pull down on this and pull that whole arm forward and give us brakes. I'm just gonna weld it up, and then we can give it a test. I got it together. We got rear brakes. The only thing it's missing is a return spring, but look at that. Isn't that sweet? So right here is where our return spring is gonna go. It's gonna go from here to somewhere probably like right in here, drill a little hole for it to snap into, and then they'll have a return spring. So we gotta pick up a return spring, and then tomorrow I'm going to drill a hole farther in on this L bracket here, because with this current hole setup, it's 1-to-1 ratio, and I don't like how far you have to push this down for it to engage. So if I drill a hole closer, it'll allow it to engage quicker. You will lose force though, so you'll have to push harder to make it stop. Versus this, you can push it easier, but you have to push it farther. So I'm just gonna drill it a little bit in farther, like literally probably right here next to it where it is now, and then we'll try that and see how that is. But honestly, this is the best you could possibly do for brakes on this thing on the back, because there's just so much going on. It's nearly impossible to get it all worked out perfectly and nicely, like, and have everything fit. The last thing we have to do now is the chains and tune the carb a bit more. But other than that, this thing's ready for a test ride, which is crazy because it's been so long in the making. We started this build almost 2 years ago now, when we first bought the 500cc motorcycle off Facebook Marketplace for $200, and it didn't run. It's been sat outside in the rain for 10 years. And if you all remember those videos, this thing was locked up full of water, and look at it now. Freaking looks beautiful. Runs pretty dang good for what it is. Eventually we will rebuild the engine, but now is not that time yet. First we want to make this thing move under its own power. We are so close. So a few more steps and then we'll be ready. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe. It really helps us out. Hit that thumbs up. Share it to your friends, because the more people that see this, the more views it gets us, the more it helps us out, and then we can build more cool stuff like this and continue our projects. We can't do this without you guys. I appreciate every single one of you guys. You guys mean so much to us, and we are just so happy you guys could all be along for the ride and the journey of building this crazy contraption of a mini bike, if that's what you want to call it. I consider it a mini bike because it's still a Coleman frame at the end of the day, and it hasn't gotten much bigger than a mini bike, like every other mini bike of this class, slash like frame class, if you will. So stay tuned for the next video where we do the chains and we take it on its first test ride. So I'm super hyped, Russell's super hyped. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming out soon. And we'll see you in the next one. God bless, and everyone ride safe.